Okay, let's get started again, slowly but surely. Okay, let's get started again. Now we had a lot of we heard a lot about stakeholders, how we get them, how we actually start communicating with them, and there's another stakeholder that is implicit. It's a client, and I have actually attached it to the slide. I wasn't so keen on presenting it really in this lecture setting, because this client education that has recently made it into our literature recommendations is really a new thing as it has been provided now. So we talk a lot about client education. And if we have a little bit of time, I can lead you through the 6 additional slides, which is really just a process additive, if you want, to the stakeholder identification. And if you want, it belongs to the conceptual stage and making the client actually aware of what are the potential options are. And by that, it's more about facilitating and figuring out what they want. So we have actually done that implicitly already. Yeah, so stakeholder management has a lot of parallels, but we will see how we get on with the time. So now I really wanted to bring our attention back, because we have actually kind of fought here with the conception stage, and we have a little bit ignored, this is due to my lead, the business and general environment and the context as such. And we had done another pragmatic thing. I had reformulated the term scope that is written there in like big black letters into something else. I had said it's quality. Yeah, or stakeholder expectations, and we have to come to terms with this before we actually can kind of start looking at the definition phase of our greater project life cycle. Yeah, so just to remind us, what did we have in the conception phase? So there were a few activities: identifying stakeholders, who they are, what their influence is, determining the stakeholder expectations, values. Value management is as well something that you probably have covered with Claudio. Yeah, this is a good process actually of doing it. There are others. Anybody interested in Lean or Six Sigma? Oh, there are a lot of hands going up suddenly. Yeah, you have your own processes potentially. Yeah. Okay, this is good. You will hear of it next semester. Don't panic. Yeah. So there are different methodologies. Yeah, they sit as well, often with a project theorem included, and there are kind of mechanisms that have replaced quality assurance mechanisms. Yeah? So this is actually unfair. It's proper development processes, to be fair. Yeah. Identifying project constraints, we kind of had that, but only from a very soft aspect, so we have to look a little bit deeper into this. And then investigating technical and financial issues, we have not really captured that yet. Defining deliverables and their achievement, we kind of have that. Yeah? So conception phase, where we have to cover a little bit. Feasibility, we have to cover quite a bit. Yeah, so especially when it comes to approving transition to the definition phase, there are a few recommendations that we have to look at this. So there's another piloting required. Yeah? We talk a little bit about single and double loop learning. This is quite important to discover. Yeah? We go through that in the seminar this coming week. Yeah? So we're actually doing this as well. You have probably already anticipated excitement for the seminar. This week we are going through this. Yeah? Okay, so what does it actually matter? What does it actually mean, and why does it matter for us? This really defines our strategic choices implicitly for our project. Yeah, now we actually define the setting of our project, and this impacts, of course, on how we are delivering, what we are delivering, and will it be successful or not? This was the quote that I had last lecture. If we get the project brief right, then it's more than half is already won. Yeah. So here are the strategic choices, and that already implied. What is this called in literature? Oh, golden triangle is something else. Yeah, but this is misleading because I have made it golden here. It's the iron triangle. There's as well a golden triangle. Yeah, I have it actually in the literature recognition of the history. It's a wonderful paper. There was a question of what are the commonalities in these short-driven, yeah, what did he call it actually? Didn't even call it projects. He called it something like short business activities that are time constrained, cost constrained, and often have a quality intent. This was actually how that came about. Beautiful literature from 1967. Yeah? Who wants to read a paper there? Empirically actually testable. This was quite interesting. So, okay, but this is it. Yeah, our iron triangle, or better known as the triangle of the project management. Yeah? Alex will talk as well about diamonds and polygons. There are many interpretations from that. And he has written actually a brilliant paper with one of our past students together. They looked together at where sustainability sits in this. Yeah, because as I said, projection, or the project is a removal actually from our business environment. Yeah? This means we can do it everywhere, whenever we want, and in whatever duration we want. So there are a lot of implications. And there's a hidden notion of a quicker return on the investment. This is always where I catch the full attention of all the shareholders in the room. Yeah, so quicker return of my investment. This is great. Yeah, and you can even like specify it here. Yeah, where would that sit? Return on investment, cost, time, quality. Where would that sit? Oh, this is who thinks it sits in time? Okay, there was only one arm, right? And me. And then who thinks it sits in costs? A few more arms. Who thinks it sits in quality? Yeah, the definition sits, of course, in quality. Yeah, but you're quite right. It sits implicitly as well in time and cost. Yeah, but if you have like a quality output, you want 20% in return on your investment, yeah, then this is a quality indicator. Your project performs to it or not. This is slightly cryptic. We have to read the papers. Damn it. Okay, so now we know. Let's think a little bit about the strategic choices. What does it actually mean? What can we do with this triangle? Yeah, this doesn't really tell us much. So here is, I've taken the pictures out, this is good. So strategic choices, the UK's Ministry of Defence faced, I still prefer that Ministry of Magic, yeah, so we just pretend this. Yeah, so faced new requirements for the Second Gulf War, for the equipment of their soldiers. Suppliers were ordered to issue the enhanced equipment with urgent operational requirements. What is it constrained on? So here's our triangle. Time, yeah. Other guesses? Yeah, like that. Time was the right answer. Quality is kind of there, yeah. So there were equipment with urgent operational requirements. Well, what do we do if we are the contractor that gets this? Will we change our equipment for this one? No. We will just throw the manufacturing machine and quickly print them. Yeah. Anybody can I ask? Is anybody here from the military? No. Okay. We have here and then always again one Royal Corps engineer. We had one last year, and I did this workshop actually at Cranfield, and this was a hated project. Yeah, because quite frankly, all the nations arrived there to collaborate. And equipment from those manufacturers, they were like 5 generation types behind. Yeah, this is quite demotivating if you put your line on your life on the line, and then your equipment is not really up for it. Yeah, so there are issues with it, but quite rightly, it was time constrained. Oh, time priority project. Yeah, important to recognize. This is another one. This is close to my heart. Yeah. here's a dark inside. There, my stepdad is very close to a big German steel company that is renowned for having wonderful businesses in Brazil and America. But and he was actually involved in this, and that was hilarious because it wasn't hilarious. No, sorry, I give you the wrong context. We actually went to the show. There was an air show where the Eurofighter was introduced to kind of supply chain, I guess, and main contractors, but yeah, never mind. So I was actually kind of able to get a first-hand account on this. So the Eurofighter Typhoon was a project that brought together new systems into a prototype of unstable airflow design that can fly kind of a 90-degree angle in the air. Not really, you have a drifting effect, but it has basically the newest gadgets, the newest technology. What have they done? They have basically completely redesigned the plane as it is. Yeah? There were a lot of chassis issues, which meant that the whole supply chain had to upgrade. Yeah? So the tool that they used and that went wrong, what they didn't first use was configuration management. With a project like that, it doesn't even make sense to have a Gantt chart. You want to really figure out, are we actually on the latest edition of the thing that we are implementing into our product? Yeah? So configuration management was the answer. But in the first presentation, and this was quite entertaining because this was presented to representatives from many countries that use this plane. Yeah? So they buy them in large quantities, and they come at a very high price. Yeah? They are not that cheap, actually. So the wiring system caused computer failure in extreme maneuvers. So in other words, it did the right angle, and it kind of floated and started flying in the right direction. And then you cannot really call it flying. I mean, it has a dynamic effect, but it came down like a brick. Yeah, so it was pretty bad. Pilot got out, of course, yeah, and we could see this wonderful prototype. There were many prototypes, so it's not that drastic, but it basically splintered across the field. Nobody was hurt, yeah, so it wasn't that drastic. Just collateral damage, as I was told, yeah. And some people laughed and some cried, yeah. So there was a lot of emotion as well involved. Yeah, so but this is an important thing. The delay increased the cost, and quite frankly, this was not even a problem, yeah, because it was not considered important. It was a question of solving the problem and making this maneuver work, because it gives an extreme tactical advantage for this particular use of this type of plane. Yeah, so who's involved in the manufacturing? Does anybody know? I've given it away. Germans. Who else? European Typhoon? Nobody? That's better. It's knowledge that nobody requires really. But it's a pretty European project. Yeah, we have all the European nations that I would consider being active in aerospace actually involved. We have Nordic countries, we have Finland and Sweden involved, then we have Great Britain as a main stakeholder actually involved. Actually, they had issues with this configuration management. Then we have German companies, French companies, Italian companies, one small Swiss company, and I think this is it. And they tested in Austria. Huh? So in a way, we have to like somehow moved from north to south. You can look it up as well. It's public information. Yeah, we pay as European citizens partly for those projects. But the important questions: where does it sit in the strategic choices?
Is it quality?
Yeah, wonderful. This is good. I like it. Okay, so this is quality priority project. Yeah, long story, but. Glad that everybody got it. I have quickly adapted this, that we have as well automotive there. This is actually as well true for the Volvo at the moment. Yeah, Volvo has just started. I advertised that before. This is really exciting. Yeah, Volvo is doing now the same in Sweden, in Gothenburg. Yeah, they have a center there. This is fascinating times. So VW Group did this 5 years ago. Peach, the former owner of Porsche, he insisted on this in the VW Group. He wanted the whole VW Group to have one universal multi-component chassis for the VW Group. And what that means is you have different materials that have different functions in one chassis built in. It's actually quite difficult, but after that you can fit all kinds of engines, doors, it's all kind of standardized. Yeah? So it increases production line. How long does it take to produce one Porsche, for example? I think I've asked that before.
So from the design phase to the finished product? Is that
Yeah, it's like literally putting it together in the manufacturing line.
Oh, right.
Anybody? Guesses?
3 days.
How long does it take to make a car? 3 days. Okay, this depends how you have done your manufacturing line. Porsche, it's actually 12 hours. Yeah? Then it rolls off the line. So this is pretty cool.
I'm just looking at that, and how are you supposed to have the same chassis if you've got a Polo and a Phaeton? Because they're completely different in size. You know?
Yeah, have a look at this. You will see, actually I have to be careful, you're quite right. The Phantom or as well the larger Audi modules have a different chassis. But it's again standardized, yeah? Should have really done this more explicit, you're quite right. I know that, for example, the VW for Polo, Golf, and Skoda and Audi models is extremely similar, and it's the same actually, and the Seat, and who else belongs to it?
The same, does the same work.
Yeah.
The same.
Yeah. Yeah, you can look up the chassis numbers. And VW is aiming for the same, because it increases manufacturing. You can standardize basically the input. So where would that be? Time? Cost? What are we improving with this project? Standardization? What does it normally do?
Is it in the middle?
It's somewhere between quality and time. Yeah, so we improve literally the time it takes to build. We don't have to change our manufacturing lines. Yeah? It's one size fits all. This is wonderful. Yeah, and then of course on the other side, yeah, you have the quality implication. You can actually refine it because you're doing the same again. Yeah, so you can standardize it to a very high degree. Actually, I made another mistake there. VW and Polo are different. Yeah? They're actually being produced in different manufacturing plants. Yeah, so I think actually that it has to do with size, but the chassis are basically standardized. So if you're interested in this, it's a very cool report. I was more interested in the material components that they have used, because it's one chassis, but it's made up of different materials. Yeah? So this was actually quite cool. Again, yeah, brilliant project, and in Sweden we are trying to do the same now for Volvo. Yeah, this is and this is very smart. Yeah, so Volvo has clearly understood there's something very meaningful from the market. We have as well other elements. So this was time and quality priority project, but it gives us another element. Yeah, so we have actually already realized that we have projects that we are being dropped into when it comes to the project delivery that have like different settings. Yeah. So normally, first scope is formalized and defined in detail, thus driving the budget and time. This is what we are doing to a degree. Actually, you have to explain me in a second which one we are doing. Sorry, I gave it partly away. So formalized first, planned approach. We have like a scope, and then we basically break it down from there. I have to explain, of course, what scope is in a second, yeah, to make sense of this. So we are quite alright at the moment still to imagine that there's quality. So we have quality indicators, and as long as we have formalized those, then we can build from there. We can plan it, yeah. So this is called the planned approach, and then we have the opposite. So we start actually. You know what? I've just this is the wrong way around. This is very, very bad, and I just recognized that now. So this is the not the planned approach. This is actually the value approach. Yeah? I hope you will be with me. So if we have, of course, quality definition and all that before, then we are driving it over the value that we actually try to get out, and this is a planned approach. Yeah? So contrary to what I have written there. This is very important. I will change it in the slides so that you don't have it the wrong way around. But we have other projects where we start actually with a budget and time, and we don't really specify what it is. Those are normally the most confusing projects, yeah, because we have to figure out what our scope actually is, or what our quality is that we can deliver in the time given and in the budget that we have. That often requires experience, so there are a lot of hidden dimensions for that. Okay, what is scope? I went here for an old definition because they have done a tricky thing in the new APM book. The new one, the 6th edition of APM Body of Knowledge 2012, has just tricked a little bit around. So they say like first section, context, is 50 pages, and they kind of don't mention the term scope, which is kind of dangerous. And then in the implementation, they say scope management. The scope may change during the project. This is very bad. Yeah? I have had my issues with this section, but they have claimed, and they have the link there, they refer back to read up on settings. Yeah? So they just claim that scope is settings too in the new version, which is just confusing. So for this sake, we actually use the old one. The scope comprises the project deliverables and the work associated with producing these deliverables. So what product are you going to get? And it can even specify how you're going to perform it. So yet that you remember that, just imagine it as a dance performance. So this is normally something that sticks with people in their mind. So, oh, we can make it in dance. Okay, I don't know why this comes up always. It sticks certainly to my mind. So, so it's what you're actually going to produce and how you're going to perform it. It is important to also define what is outside of the scope. So it's dismissing what you're not delivering. Scope management is continually applied throughout the project lifecycle. Okay, so this means if we have like indication from our clients where we don't know yet, then don't try to make it concrete in the conception phase. Then go for an approach that allows the negotiation throughout the project. That means that the stakeholders are accessible during the project. This is very important. If this is not possible, then you have to define the scope concrete. If the stakeholders are not interested or not available, then you have to come to agreed determinants or definitions that you can actually work with. So there's a notion and a warning. So it's, scope is actually kind of a wibbly-wobbly term. This comes really from a certain development. I'll come to that in a second. So it's an edge definition, basically. The only certainty in the project is an uncertainty as it stands. But this is, of course, not true. We have gone through the process of making it concrete. There are many variables in a project. These can be recognized. Specification will lack accuracy in terms of final outcome of the project. Specification will not be sufficient detail early enough to predict exactly the deliverables. This is often the criticism of this project, but we have wonderful tools and techniques. If you follow them through, you get there. Here's the notion of scope management. That was a missing link. Scope management is a process by which deliverables and work to produce them are identified and defined. Identification and definition of the scope must describe what the project will include and what it will not include. What is in and what is out of scope. But again, you can spend a lot of time on it. It has to have a functional use. This is my personal recommendation. Why is this so wibbly-wobbly, the scope? Why is this?
Because you might never do this project before. Maybe it's first time and you have to discover that while you should do something.
So we have often in project a new unique endeavor. This is a wonderful definition in the new project management guide from APM, the APM book 2012. And this is quite right. We're looking with different projects for different outreach. Sometimes we are driven by market forces. We need a new product to fulfill a gap. We don't really know what it will be, but we will develop it. We will come up with something. It may be driven by a new item for a new prototype of plane. It may be, so we have different drivers. It may be an investment of better entertainment. Who would have thought that we spend so much money on a little mobile phone that we hold actually to our ear. Yeah. So a few years ago, how much was the first phone that you had in your house that you remember? Does anybody know? How much was a good old phone where you had this tablet where you had to move your finger like this? Yeah, they often came for free with a phone line, yeah? So this was actually pretty close. And it was good fun, you knew all the numbers, right? Is this true? The 5 numbers that you needed. I needed 5 numbers for all my friends. This was it. And I think to form my mother as an alternative and my dad. Yeah, okay, those were the alternative numbers. Oh, and my grandparents. Yeah, okay, no, never mind. But so you knew the numbers. Who knows now the numbers by heart? Anybody?
Yeah.
All the numbers in the mobile?
Not all of them. Not all of them.
Half. I'm impressed. Okay, this is good.
You know, like your best pal from the 90s.
Okay, yeah, see, I know even friends, yeah, where it gets critical with their own number. You ask him, what's your number? Oh, wait, I have to have a look. Yeah, so, well, we have certainly compromised there, but coming back to the scope, yeah, so we have different drivers for our projects that sit outside in the conception stage, and often they're not visible. So you have to allow to the integration and to the adjustment of the project scope to what you are actually delivering. Yeah, this is very important. With this comes scope creep. Scope is refined as part of requirements management, so this is just showing the user linking. So during the project, you need to actually concrete the requirements. The earlier you can do it, the easier it is to deliver. Yeah? And also as a production of project management plan. So we use it actually in one of our key tools. I'm not a big fan actually from the project management plan. It's subscribed in a lot of professional bodies. But actually we have a lot of project files as well. If anybody works with something called Agile or different project methodologies, you don't actually have such a thing as a project management plan per se. Yeah? So be careful with that. We have other good visualization tools that we can use and that are a lot more focused on achieving the task at hand. Yeah? So this depends really on the setting. When the final scope has been agreed with the sponsor, it's baselined. This is actually something that is very important when we come to the definition stage. This is when we kind of like commit to the project. That is when there is no easy possibility of changing the the budget, the scope itself, or the time frame anymore. Yeah, this is in the definition stage. That is kind of the baseline, and it's often as well a gate approach, a gating stage for reviewing it in the wider setting of the business environment. The baseline is then used to measure, change, and ensure the scope creep does not occur if it's not wanted. In the Olympics or bigger projects, we have that actually quite a bit. Yeah? In the Olympics, we had enormous scope creep, and it's anticipated. Even in the what was quite interesting Crossrail project at the moment, there are a lot of maintenance and repair companies for rail and bridges positioning themselves for this massive project in the UK as well as in China. And we have already massive scope creep there. Yeah? The evaluations were done on certain expectations. They have now actually come up with new designs which actually kind of outlive the refines. Yeah, so, yeah.
Remember last time you showed us all those different projects that started at this price and then ended up like loads more? Is that
this can be as well scope creep, yeah. I had a wonderful discussion, and I wonder, can I pick on your project that we discussed in your in our discussion? You spoke about a bridge, and there was a wonderful scenario, yeah, when it came actually to the conception what this project is about. You discovered as well additional stakeholders who were actually happy to enlarge the budget if it would come to that, isn't it?
Yeah, true. That's true.
So what happened there actually? Can you?
They were not involved from the very start, and when we tried to involve them, and we just discovered that they are very much interested in one specific component of the bridge to be changed to. So they were so interested in that specific area, so that they can even think of sponsoring that specific component of the bridge.
So it was a historic bridge, to give the context.
That is very historical with the heritage and cultural and historical value. So, and they have the very beautiful castle, like 50 meters before, close to the bridge. So they really want to contribute something in order to keep that look and that environment preserved for the next generation.
So when it came actually to the stakeholder consultation, the initial budget went probably over, but additional stakeholders were actually found that wanted to be part of this, and they were even happy to pay for it. But this is probably an exception. I haven't heard that on a voluntary basis that often. But often we can make a case for it. If the value created from the project means more than the investment and the input into the budget, and this is often very difficult to measure. This is an art that you will come to terms with either David Beanie or a little bit with Claudio. He will help you to measure those things and evaluate it in risk. But often, if the money that they put in returns more value for them, then you can often justify it. And if you have a big stakeholder consortium, like something like the Olympics, there are a lot of powerful stakeholders in there. So different sports associations may actually favor to have their sport being recognized at the center of London too, to advertise, to grow as a body. So there's a strategic interest in things like that. And that is when scope creeps enormously. So or when the scope actually shifts enormously. And then potentially the budget with it. And let's just keep it that way. I think that this is actually a good start. The other tools and topics such as earned value management are usually used as well to actually describe this. This is exactly where we think about will this additional investment actually return greater value. So there's as well an element from the project manager in promoting it that way. So you have actually this mediation role of actually selling this as well, and explaining why the budget is going up, and configuration management maybe in more technical projects, where you actually integrate new tools and gadgets, and change control is a way of actually considering if you want to integrate it. This is particular change control is something that we look at when it comes to the project implementation. So when we have kind of the project brief ready, we look at different change control mechanisms and tools, and I like to look as well a little bit. This is a little bit German-centric, but the Americans love it as well at the moment. It's project steering. This is something that is a little bit specific to those two nations and to certain industries, but it's a very cool thing to look at it actually. So those are as well potential enlargements to scope management. Okay, let's go one step even further. We had actually a project context definition, and I have to admit that the project context sits in a scenario that is described as the 5C model, and there just stands as a context, but I'll come to that in a second. So project context refers to the environment, so I have to explain now the environment, within which a project is undertaken. Projects do not exist in a vacuum, and an appreciation of the context within which the project is being performed will assist those involved in project management to deliver projects. This hasn't really told us a lot, so we have to make that a little bit more concrete. The traditional tool for this is a PESTEL, standing for political influence, economics, social. This is actually what it stands for. What we in academia have made out of it is we call it now sociology. So I like that actually. And then technical, technology, and environmental is still the same, and legal is as well still the same. Usually, and this is actually something that I have mostly seen in industry, in the literature you don't see that so much. We combine that with strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat analysis. So for each element, we think first strengths, and then we do the PESTEL for strengths. Then you do the weaknesses, again PESTEL, and then you do the opportunities and threats. This is often part of the feasibility study. Yeah. So it's normally a decent report with with an executive page or summary, where you kind of say, okay, it was meaningful, but we can do it as well on one page actually. And it's a powerful tool. What did I mean by the 5 Cs? This I have drawn this from Mayer. It's normally illustrated as bubbles that are actually interrelating. I don't know why he drew it this way, but there you have the context. So we kind of have a definition now, a rough one, but we really have to have a look a little bit further into the project environment. So there is a notion of completeness. So this is our project environment which we are performing our project in. Yeah? So what is expected? Is it a completeness? Is it a customer focus? Is this a competitiveness? And interrelating with the context, the resulting complexity. So this is heavy. We have to come to terms with that a little bit. So I will try to explain it very briefly. So completedness, it's really the notion of producing integrated solutions, moving away from product or a surface focus, but as well thinking about the whole life cycle actually of it. What could that be? Can I have an example for this?
When you're sort of looking after a building where it's being built, like facilities management
Yeah, and
demolition at the end.
yeah. Yeah, this was right. Yeah, so you look kind of at the land use kind of. Yeah, if you are looking at a building project. Yeah, so you think what is actually the use of this land? What value can we create? What is needed? And then you build it, and you think as well about how can you recycle? What can be built afterwards? Yeah. Where do we do this already? Oh, and we have somebody here from the industry. Life cycle. We do this in farming, isn't it?
Okay.
Do you not think so? Like, the land use, for example, you actually plan successively.
Yeah, it's a cycle constantly.
Yeah.
You're right.
And why do you do this? What happens to the soil or to the ground?
Well, for example, you have to, you cannot plant the same crop 2 years consecutively.
Yeah, consecutively? Yeah, if it's one problem, yeah.
Yeah, because it has a quite big impact in the minerals or in the resources.
Yeah. What happens to the soil?
Well, depending on the crop, they are more demanding, for example, in different kind of components of the soil. So, you have to change the crop because if you are all the time planting the same component is going to be wasted, not wasted. Sorry?
To be shorter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't develop completely, yeah? So in other words, yeah, so by saying...
Not completely, but you are going to have to invest more money because that component is not going to be in the soil.
Yeah, so you're refining the soil to compromise then, yeah, with a lot of agriculture. So there's a cost implication, yeah? What is another product where we do this? What do you do with your old mobile phone in the bin?
Recycle.
Yeah, recycle? What do we do? Actually, this is a dangerous question. In some countries, it is actually into the bin. Now, what do we do with the mobile potentially? Has nobody any? Recycling the battery. Oh, you do the recycling yourself. Okay, a lot of contracts actually offer you a new mobile and they ask you to send the old one in and they give you kind of a cash reward. And they actually recycle it. Sometimes they sell it to other markets where the product is new, but actually they have a contract where they have to recycle the products because they use a lot of metals that are kind of harmful for the environment, or at least... Pardon?
They might give you 3 different prices depending on what condition you've left it in, you know.
Oh, I see. So I didn't know this. So you have experiences firsthand, yeah? Okay, so keep it in good shape. There may be a price difference afterwards. Okay. Okay, so this is a completeness solution. Then there's a customer focus, of course. Yeah, new standards emerge due to changing expectations. Yeah, how do we change actually expectations potentially? How can we do this? As project managers, what do? We have just invented the best thing ever, the mobile that is in the hand. You go to the doctor and you can phone like this.
Make
Okay,
it so-
this
make it
didn't
so
grab,
that-
right?
You make it so that people believe that they need that product.
Yeah, for example, I like this. Your strategy is to manipulate them that they want this too. Yeah. How would we do this? Advertisement. Yeah.
Yeah, strong sales techniques, to be fair.
Sales techniques. Yeah. Okay, this is one way. Yeah. Well, what is the other customer focus? Yeah. This is good. This is the answer. Yeah. This is true for many industries. Well, what is another one?
You let the consumers try it out.
Yeah.
You give it to some consumers to try it out and then they get feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a traditional way. Yeah, you spread the message in a way, and you can do that by actually introducing it for free. Yeah, with the operation and the mobile in the hand. I'm not sure how many customers you will get for that quickly, but you know, there are different ways of doing it. There's a huge part of literature around it. Yeah, in Harvey Mailer's book, you can actually see different examples. Yeah. So one way was, for example, with EasyJet. He describes the usability of the tickets. Yeah? This is a wonderful case study with that in mind. Yeah? Then we have the complexity. Simple is the notion normally behind that is that we have kind of exploited very often the simplest idea that we have. And we have increased complicated technology. Yeah? So to give you a very long-term perspective, let's maybe not go, no, let's go the whole way. So imagine we lived 5,000 years ago, then our technology was probably quite limited. But it was all learnable within a lifetime. Yeah? Quite frankly, if you try to understand today all complicated technologies, then you will be probably either at a very technology-focused company or at university. And it's very difficult. We do not understand the technology that we're using nowadays 100% anymore. There's a disconnect. And with this, we have as well implication on behavioral systems. Yeah? Who would have thought that we are very good in fine motoric nowadays? Yeah? That we have a very small device where we kind of do something with a finger on it. Yeah? This is a strange idea, I think 40 years ago. Nobody would have believed that in that sense. Yeah? Maybe if you were a Star Trek fan, yeah, they did already things like that, but it was slightly different. Yeah? So complexity is multidimensional, and we look a little bit at it as well next session when we come actually to deciding what project categories we actually have. Yeah? So I will unfold the complexity in particular a little bit more. And then we have the competitiveness. While some sectors still build institutional organizational forms, which means there is a way of doing it. Standardization is institutionalizing. And we have it in many industries, even the most innovative ones. Technology has reduced monopolies, resulting in flexibility and places the time and quality as competitive resource. So we have now actually a lot of alternative ways of doing things. Yeah? And with this, projects have even moved more into the focus, yeah, because we can do it faster potentially and without any fixes to markets or places. This is quite fascinating. What is a very competitive environment maybe as an example? Who can think of a product or industry?
Manufacturing.
Sorry? Yeah, mobiles?
Housing development.
Housing?
Housing, like, there's a lot of national house builders competing within.
Are we quite competitive there?
Yes.
Contractors are. This was the right answer. Yeah, so within the construction supply chain, we are quite competitive. Yeah, and this is very true. But actually, in housing itself, we are probably not that competitive. Yeah. What is another example for competitive markets? Yeah, we had mobiles. Yeah.
Production,
What production?
all production.
Yeah, it's mass production. Yeah, where you compete with a product against other products. Yeah, where you have markets of scale. Very often so. Yeah. Okay. Okay, now we have kind of reached the level where we can talk about the definition. And yeah, I have 2 memory slides, but I wanted to actually leave it with this for today because it will be enough for our seminar. Next session, we start a little bit looking at the project governance and the project categorization. And that is where you need to do some reading as well. Yeah? So make sure that you're catching up with the reading as what I suggested in the book chapters. Yeah, yeah, please.
You had on here project environment, and the guy there said building life cycle, like maintenance, demolition and that. The girl over there said soil preservation. To me, completeness and producing an integrated solution, moving away from product or service focus, none of those two, that does not mean either of those two at all. To me, I'm just relating to what I know. And in my industry, when you have a house, you have to do a calculation, right, for that house, an energy calculation. And a lot of companies go and outsource that work. And that's good. And in Bovis, where I used to work, I was trained to do that. So isn't that an integrated solution?
Yeah. This is the first stage, if you think about it. Yeah, in construction, or if you look at the whole construction life cycle, you start at the beginning really by creating a need. You decide this land, this is often at council level, should be for housing, for example. Yeah? And this is then when Bovis, for example, decides, okay, we develop that as a housing park, detached houses. Yeah? And then the implication would be now not to sell it, but to rent it out and look after it as well, yeah, or sell it and do the maintenance contracts for that estate. And then when the lifetime is over, they say, you know what, you can keep living here, but we build you a new house. Would you be interested in this? You know, and then create new value. So this would be kind of a way of integrating it. But not many companies focus on that. We have said in some large companies that they have their own bank. You know, they want to do the real estate management as well. Or Bovis is very good there as well, a housing agent, isn't it?
Yeah, they do.
So they actually have houses where they kind of sell part and then...
because they have like part buy, part rent, part mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah. So this would be an idea. This is like partly integrating the life cycle, but in construction we are not fully there yet. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Thank you.
But we can use that. Sorry, we can.